Okay, I'm going to show you pattern exercises 5B, some easy ways of doing this. And you know, these are pattern assemblages that you're making out of magazine cutouts. So you have to look through some magazines. I have some magazines right here that I looked through, and I found little pieces that didn't have too many words in them, and I cut them out. A nice thing to do too is to scan them, and then you can print out several of them. So if you want a bunch of skies, you can scan them and then print them out if you want to, or you can just scour the magazines and find what you want to find. So for simple sequence, where I have one element repeated, I simply have this nice fern pattern, and I put a pattern of blue that I found on top of it, just squares, and I cut them out and glued them on, and I just used my glue stick and kind of got a little glue on them and just glued them right down to create a pattern. Now, it's important that you sort of experiment with this technique, because in your project, when you do it on illustration board, you're going to have to do something similar to this on a larger 8 by 10 inch scale. So whatever pattern you choose to do, you're going to be doing it on a large scale. So this is kind of practice. For my alternating sequence, I took the cloudy sky, I don't know if you can see that, the cloudy sky piece, and I just simply put alternated the white stripe with the cloudy sky, white stripe, cloudy sky, white stripe, cloudy sky. I just made stripes. You can do whatever you want to. You can alternate any elements that you want to for the alternating sequence. A nice way to put down long strips, if you need to, is to sort of run them across the glue stick with your thumb, and you can hold on to them there like that, and then just simply pull it across like that to apply glue to the strip, and then you just simply lay it down on the backing piece that you want to. So you can see what a real shortcut is to get a nice colored backing piece that you can use, and then you apply the other elements of the pattern to it. That makes it a little bit easier. This one is going to be my cross-linked pattern, and it is a blue cloudy sky alternating sequence on a brownish gray cloudy sky. I don't know if you can see that in the video. And then simply white squares that I am applying in another pattern on top in a random organic way. So these squares are all similar, and they're placed at irregular intervals. They're all which way, they're all different ways, so I'm just rubbing them on the glue stick and applying them on top. So in essence, I have two patterns here. I could have more. I could put another pattern on top of this. I have an alternating sequence that is overlaid or cross-linked with a random organic placement of these squares, where they are simply laid down in a very irregular kind of way. So that's the cross-linked pattern. So I have my simple sequence squares in regular intervals. I have my alternating sequence, in this case blue alternating with white as a pattern, and my cross-linked pattern here, in this case alternating sequence overlaid with a random organic kind of placement of squares on top. Okay, so those are my three so far. And then finally I've got my random organic pattern on its own, where I have similar elements, these squiggly lines, repeated at irregular intervals. So they're kind of placed horizontally on this page, but they're kind of in a more chaotic placement, and again, they're not exactly the same as each other. They're similar, but they're not exactly the same. When you think about an organic or irregular pattern, you think about the pattern that is in nature, like grass growing, leaves on trees, clouds in skies. They have a pattern-like quality to them without being machine exactly the same, placed at precisely the same mathematical intervals. They're kind of irregular in their manner, which makes that kind of pattern a little bit more natural, a little bit more organic, a little bit more random. So depending on what effect you're trying to achieve, you could use any one of these for basic types of patterns. You can vary color, you can vary shapes, you can vary the size and scale of different things. And then when you're done with each one of these little magazine patterns, you're going to apply glue to the back of it, real simply, and glue each one to the center of a plain white sheet of paper. And again, just like we did before, you're going to put a sheet on top and burnish it down. So for each pattern, you're going to have a separate page with its own, oopsie, lost one, with its own pattern on top of it, just like so. So you've got your random organic, just like that, okay? So each one will be on its own page, and then you'll scan them and send them in. Make sure that you're paying particular attention to craftsmanship when you do this, cutting neatly, gluing neatly, and being complex enough to make these interesting without exactly copying what I'm doing. Think about how you might use this in your own way. Also, when you're scanning these things, make sure that you get a good scan. Make sure that the surface of your design is coming in contact with clean glass on the scanner. Shut the lid and scan it well. Look at it on your computer and make sure that the scan looks good, because that's all I'm seeing. All I'm seeing is the scan. So you need to make sure that the scan is very, very high quality so that I can see your work at its best advantage. Okay, so when you're done with these, scan them and send them in with the other pattern exercises.